Who's that coming down the street? Who's that coming to me? Is that two Hexy mamas? Yeah, that was...
Shut up, that was so good.
I told Dylan, I said, I'm gonna poop, and you tell me if it smells like just like I sprayed Febreze over like a clearly stinky bathroom, or if it really worked. And I went to the bathroom, I came back out, and he went back in, he's like, literally, it just smells like lavender. I got it because everybody's over here for D&D, and I'm like, and that bathroom's right there, so the smell could travel out.
I'm not worried about the smell. I'm worried about the sound.
Oh, well, that too.
So, just so you guys know, we've been recording
Oh, no.
for about a minute.
Oh,
so
shoot.
I've caught all of the poo-poo talk.
This is good girl talk.
Yeah.
It's good girl talk, girl.
All right. Are you ready to start? Are you ready?
Yeah.
Oh.
You're talking to
No, I was talking to you.
I'm ready.
Okay. Welcome, everybody, to Two Hexy Mamas. This is our new podcast. What are you laughing at already?
I didn't know what to say, so I was just waiting for you
Already?
to introduce yourself.
This is our new podcast. We've never done it before, clearly. I'm Korina.
I'm Jessica.
And
We're here to talk about spooky things.
spooky things. Today is about haunted things, but that's not what we're limiting ourselves to. It's going to be about all sorts of spooky things.
Spooky things, hauntings, exorcisms,
Monsters.
crazy people.
All sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
Why did we choose the name? Why did we choose the
Why
name?
did we choose Two Hexy Mamas? So,
We didn't.
we're both obviously mothers. I have 2 little girls.
And I have one little boy.
And I think we both just have, maybe not a love, but a fascination for spooky things.
Mm-hmm.
I can recall when I was little, my parents watching Chucky. I think it was like one of the newer ones, and I would kind of creep down the stairs and like spy to watch, because you want to watch spooky things, even though you're gonna be scared. And
I remember my very first like horror movie. My dad had me watch American Werewolf in London, and it was super cheesy and super terrible, but it scared the crap out of me. But he always taught me, he was like, think about it as like, wow, how'd they do that effect? And so like, that's why I was always into like super scary stuff. And then my dad's always been into stuff like that. So I've always like looked into it, like ghosts and things like that. But mostly the other reason why we've added the word mamas to our thing is because there is no way that you will never not hear our children.
Yeah, you'll probably hear them throughout the entire podcast.
I can hear my son already.
And I can understand people that do podcasts and they like want complete silence, but my life is too busy to not have, like, to try to set aside a time for my kids to be like put away or just, not be quiet. They're kids. No way. Yeah, they're kids, and I'm not gonna.
Mine's 2, and there's no way of me telling him to be quiet.
Yeah, no. Like, maybe if they're being ridiculous, but
if they were older, maybe, but
yeah, like
they're all little. They're all little. So, yeah, 17. Maybe then they'll be quiet.
Yeah.
So that is why we chose the name. Today's theme was so this is our first episode, and the theme we went with was haunted hotels. So
I think so. We're going to release a podcast every week.
We're gonna try to.
We're gonna try to probably on the same day every week. And then I think if we, once we end our podcast, we're going to give out an email for everyone. We want to hear your spooky stories and what kind of scary things you've experienced in your life. And we would love to read your stories and kind of just discuss them. And we'll give an email out at the end of the podcast. And maybe, during the week, if we get enough emails, we could do like a mini episode.
Yeah. I'd like that.
Yeah, a mini episode and talk about these stories because I like hearing.
I was gonna say I love hearing other people's stories too, especially because very few things have happened to me personally, so I like hearing other people's first person accounts. Yeah. So, are you ready to start?
I am ready.
You wanted me to go first?
Sure.
Okay. Well, as soon as we mentioned we were doing haunted hotels, I knew exactly what hotel I was gonna do because I've watched probably 5 or 6 documentaries about this hotel, and I just finished one when we came up with this idea, so I knew exactly what I was going to do. And I thought I saw something out the window, sorry.
Don't do that.
Sorry.
We're sitting right in front of the window.
And then I listened to a lot of true crime podcasts, and this is a subject of a lot of them. So I'm going to put the disclaimer that this is considered one of the most haunted hotels in Los Angeles, but I couldn't find any, like, first-hand accounts of hauntings. I could only find examples of really terrible things that happened there that basically are like, well, if all that happened, there's no way it's not haunted.
Right.
So the hotel I'm doing is the Cecil Hotel. I'm sure if any of you listening are any form of, like, true crime fan, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But I know you don't, because I already talked to you about it. So are you ready to hear about the Cecil? So here I'm going to give you a brief history just about the hotel itself before telling you all the stuff that happened. So the Cecil Hotel was built in 1924 in Los Angeles, California. It was supposed to be, like, the hotel for travelers and tourists to go to. Like, they built it
Back in the day.
Yeah, they built it with the intention of it being, like, huge, beautiful. It was, like, Art Deco and really pretty, and, like, they wanted everybody to go there. The hotel cost $1 million to build and was considered an opulent and classy location with marble flooring and stained glass windows. But, so it was built in 1924, and only 5 years later-ish, the Great Depression hit.
Oh.
So that basically no one was staying in hotels,
Right.
no one was traveling.
Right.
So the hotel began to decline, and it got sucked into what is now considered Skid Row. So I think it was near Skid Row before, and it just kind of got pushed into that same, like,
location.
basically. So it was known as a place for transients to stay and was eventually refurbished in 2007 and rebranded in 2011 as the Stay on Main. So you can actually, to my knowledge,
Stay there. If
not, you could have stayed there up until, like, very recently, within, like, the last handful of years. Right, and then in 2017, it was deemed a historic monument, so it can't be destroyed.
Yeah,
so even if no one stays in it anymore and all this horrible stuff happened, it has to stay there.
Well, most big buildings that have a lot of money put in them
Yeah.
back in the day, they are historic.
And they spent, like, a crap ton of money trying to refurbish it.
Yeah.
So I think they were trying to make it, like, a really nice, like, I mean, LA's, you know how it is. Like, everything's pretty and golden
also,
and beautiful.
people went to LA to become something.
Right.
So, I mean, what a better
Right.
place.
Okay, so now here's the scary stuff.
Ooh, goody.
As the air... I'm sure they can hear that.
Oh,
Sounds like a scraping sound. Your toes.
Well, that's scary. There's nothing scarier than scraping
Scraping
toes.
your toes on the mic stand. So, as the area around the hotel got worse, suicides and violent deaths became more frequent. In 1931, there was the very first suicide in the hotel, the first documented suicide in the hotel. And it was a man named W.K. Norton who was the subject of a nationwide manhunt that came to a screeching halt when they found he had died after taking poison capsules. More and more suicides took place, so much so that long-term residents called the hotel, instead of calling it the Cecil, they started calling it the Suicide.
Damn.
Because it became one of those hotels that, like, went from you pay X amount $100 a day to stay there to you could pay $10 an hour to stay there. Like, it became one of those, like, seedy hotels very quickly.
Come for your suicide.
Right. Come here, kill yourself. So a woman staying at the hotel with her married lover, this is just, like, another, like, crazy story, woke up one night in 1944 with a horrible stomach pain. She went to the bathroom as to not wake her lover. To her surprise, she gave birth.
What?
Right in the bathroom, which I'll never understand how women don't know they're pregnant.
That's confusing.
I will
to me.
forever not understand that, because I was very aware that I was pregnant.
There's so many symptoms.
How do they explain, like, the kicking and the moving? Like,
Well, some people say it's gas.
that's not gas.
Well, you don't have gas
felt
like
like-
that? I have gas
No.
like that sometimes.
I felt like an alien was trying to rip out of my stomach. Like,
Well, yeah, like later on.
yeah, but I'm saying she gave birth, so how did she... it doesn't make sense to me. But, I mean, they have a whole TV show based off of it, so... Holy crap, your phone scared me.
No, we're not talking about my child's school lunch bell.
Oh. I was like, what is that? Where was I?
It was called The Suicide. Can stay for $10 an hour.
She was only 19. She when the baby was born, she swears that it was dead. She swears it was a stillborn. So she panicked that she had this baby and she didn't want him knowing about it, and she thought it was dead already, that she just like casually walked over to the window and just...
Wasn't it her married lover? So
I'm pretty, like, everything that I read was that he was already married, but I don't know for sure.
He was married.
He was married.
She was the mistress.
Yes.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Regardless, she was only 19. Like, even if he wasn't married, she was 19 and he was not.
But in my mind, I'm thinking,
she was his wife?
Yes.
No.
And I'm like, bitch, why does it matter?
No.
Have that baby.
No. So then they, she just threw it out the window and they found out it was not dead. So she didn't even get arrested for it because they said she was crazy. Like, she had, like, mental problems. Your phone is the loudest vibrating phone.
I'm putting it somewhere else.
So ever since then, people swear they can hear a baby crying.
Oh, my God.
Even though, to my knowledge, the baby never cried, obviously, because she thought it was...
From what she said.
Who knows? Along with these suicides were a slew of violent events that became notorious spot... And it became a notorious spot for adulterous couples, drug addicts, and prostitutes. Like, literally, prostitutes just lined that corner. So, if I say the name Elizabeth Short, do you know who that is?
Isn't that Black Dahlia?
Yes. Okay. So, in 1947, Elizabeth Short, who would later be known as the Black Dahlia, was seen at the Cecil's bar, like, 2 or 3 days before she was murdered.
What?
Yeah, because you know how, like, there was all those stories that she was, like, going out with men and, like... Mm-hmm. Hanging out with just people. She was apparently at the bar like 2 or 3 days before she was murdered. So some people think that she met whoever was her murderer because they still don't know.
She met him there.
Some people say that, or either way, she was seen at this like notorious death hotel. She was seen there days before she like got brutally murdered.
Yeah. Well, hold on. So, American Horror Story was the hotel based on Cecil?
Yes, that's what I was going to say. I have that in here, but yeah, you'll see, and you'll know that there's like a whole
some of the little things, like I'm kind of picking up, like maybe they kind of took from it.
And from what I understand from like the few pictures I've seen, how like, you know how the hotel looked in the TV show? Mm-hmm. That's how it looked, like very Art Deco and like old school cool. Mm-hmm. That's what it looked like for 5 years, but then it went to crap.
Right.
There have been at least 3 documented cases of women jumping off the same upper level, killing themselves. One famously fell to death and was found on the sidewalk with another man who was not her husband. It was originally thought that she and the man were having an affair, until they looked and he's taking pictures.
You freaked me out.
I know.
Like, what are you looking at?
He's just taking pictures from the staircase. Until they looked and they found the man had his shoes still on, and they were like, well, most people that jump out of a building lose their shoes, and they figured out that when she jumped from the building, he was walking, he was a pedestrian, and she landed.
Killed him.
Like, what dumb luck that you're just walking. And you just so like they went to her husband and were like, your wife was having an affair, isn't that like horrible? No. Do you know this man? And he was like, no, and they found out that she wasn't having an affair. She just landed on some really unlucky guy.
That is awful.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, don't touch that.
Not only did the hotel seem to attract bad luck and death, but it also attracted one of the most infamous serial killers. Do you know who the Night Stalker is?
Kind of sounds familiar, but
yeah, he was a really famous serial killer. His real name was Richard Ramirez, and I tell Dylan all the time that, like, because, you know, they talk about how serial killers are, like, really attractive, and everybody's always like, Jeffrey Dahmer was so attractive.
See, I don't see it.
I don't, but if you look at Richard Ramirez...
I don't know.
I'll show you a picture. That's true.
In men.
That's true. I'll show you a picture later.
He probably looks busted.
He had a little bit of busted teeth.
Ew.
Like, his teeth looked funny.
Done for.
But I find him very attractive. He was rumored
He had no teeth, but he was very attractive.
No, he had teeth. They just were a little crooked. They were just crooked, that's all. But he stayed there for a couple weeks when he committed, like, a good chunk of his... There he is, look!
Ew. He's got really feminine cheekbones.
I
There's no
think
way.
he is super attractive.
No,
Let
are
me
you
see.
kidding me? He looks like a serial
I love
killer.
him.
He looks like a serial killer.
He's a terrible human being, but he's very
He looks
attractive.
like a serial killer.
Very attractive. Speaking of looks like a serial killer.
You can continue.
He stayed there basically and committed a good chunk because he murdered prostitutes.
So he was a resident then.
Yes, and
Okay.
apparently he would murder women, take off his clothes like in the dumpster that had like blood all over them, and just walk into the hotel naked and no one said anything. They're like, "Oh hey, like,
Hey.
peace out. Like, what'd you do tonight? Like,
You need some napkins or some newspaper?
you want to clean up? Like, I don't know what you want."
Some newspaper.
So, like years and years later, there was a man who he was an Austrian. He said he was an Austrian crime writer. His name was Jack Underweger, and he came and stayed at the Cecil. And he's like, "I'm gonna stay at the Cecil because I'm writing about crime and prostitution in LA, so I'm gonna stay here because it's like right in the heart of everything." Blah
Right.
blah blah. He like cozied up to the LAPD, and they like took him on ride-alongs and like showed him all the crime and like all this stuff. Turns out he was a serial killer. And he was just riding along with the police. And the police were like, "Wow, I wonder who did this horrible murder." And it was him.
He was right there.
And he was right there. And he stayed there because he, like, idolized Richard Ramirez. So he was like, "I'm going to stay there, too," like he did. And he, like, murdered people in a similar fashion.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, but he just, like...
What was Ramirez? Was he put in jail shortly after, or was he
I think
caught?
he was
or
caught before...
He went there.
Before Jack showed up, because he was from Austria, so like
Right.
it wasn't like he was like right there. The story I'm about to tell you is probably like the most. This is what made the hotel famous again, because it was like a crime-ridden place back in like the 20s, 30s, 40s. So like by the time like 2000s rolled around, what are you looking for? Did you drop your ring?
My ring. Oh, I found it.
By the time the 2000s rolled around, like no one really knew about it unless you were there. But in 2013, after being rebranded as Stay on Main, the hotel came back into the spotlight. Surveillance footage of a Canadian student named Eliza Lamb was released. In the footage, she was behaving erratically in the elevator of the hotel. Have you ever seen this video?
Is this the one
She
that
looks slightly Asian.
Yeah, so she was... Okay, I know what you're talking about. I know the story.
She kept
yes.
like running in and out of the elevator.
Yes.
Yes. So she was in the elevator of the hotel, pushing buttons, attempting to hide, and walking in and out of the elevator. The footage went viral around the time of her disappearance and was reported. And around the time her disappearance was reported. After complaints by many guests of strange tasting water and low water pressure, they found her naked body, floating in the water supply cistern on the roof.
Mm-hmm.
To this day, no one knows how she got there or got on the roof. Not only did she, a 21, she was very skinny. She was like teeny.
Yeah.
She opened the top of the
Exactly,
cistern,
uh-huh.
but then she, naked, mind you, closed herself into it. And people were like, "There's no way.
No.
There's no way one human being could have done that." But they are basically, she had bipolar, so they're basically like, "Well, that was what it was. So bye."
I don't know. So I've seen the video surveillance.
It's super creepy.
The way that she's kind of like going in and out of the elevators, it almost looks like she's trying to hide from
Yes,
someone.
that's what everybody keeps saying. They're like, it looks like she's like playing a really terrifying game of like peekaboo. Like
Exactly.
she's like, she keeps like looking out and looking around and then coming back
Exactly.
in. Terrifying.
Yes.
And like, that out of like X amount of cameras, only one camera got her doing that. Like, it was weird. And like, I don't know.
I sense lots of foul play.
So in the hotel's existence, there were 16 reported suicides. And that's just reported. I don't know if like other things happened. But what I thought was really, really weird is that a good chunk of them were like people ingested poison, which is such a weird way to like kill yourself.
I feel like people think it's a less gruesome way to go.
But you know what's funny is a lot of people are like, only women do that, but the majority of them were men. Which I thought, like, the women were the ones throwing themselves out of the building. The men were the ones taking the poison. Which I thought was really weird. And, like, these women were throwing themselves out of the building and getting stuck in, like, the electrical wire. Or, like,
God.
one landed on the sign and, like, just stayed there. Yes, it was, like, she'd just be walking around and just people were just...
Oh, my God.
So, okay. So, now all this seems like a string of bad luck. But while most hotels have a handful of bad things happen... The Cecil has a list of death and terrible actions that goes on past most. Many think that the ghosts of the past residents whisper in the ears of guests, causing more destruction. So some people say that the people who killed themselves when the hotel first opened are the reason
haunting.
why people are committing suicide, like,
That could be.
in more recent times. And, like, some people are going crazy from, like, hearing things.
Do you believe in that kind of stuff?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because think about that. If you're staying in a hotel, especially if you're, like, a long-term guest, you're living in one tiny bedroom. Like, you're not even living in, like, the equivalent of your living room.
Yeah.
And you're just staying there and you hear crap and you may or may not be on drugs because if you're living in a hotel, usually you're not in a good way, I imagine, unless, like,
something's wrong.
Something's wrong. And, like, a lot of them were mentally ill, and it's just, that can't be good for people.
Yeah.
There have been reports of voices, figures, and sounds in the hotel, and what kind of dark energy keeps bringing the dark minds of serial killers. So that was the other thing too, like, it had not only one serial killer but two, like, super big serial killers staying there. Like, that never happens.
Yeah.
Like, never. And it says, whether you believe in ghosts or not, we can all agree that the hotel is plagued by a dark energy. Today, the Cecil Hotel bears a title of the most haunted hotel in Los Angeles, and even the inspiration for the hotel season of American Horror Story.
Right.
So,
Damn.
that is the Cecil Hotel.
That's scary.
Isn't that weird? They're like, they call it the most haunted hotel, but I couldn't find, like, a lot of stuff on it, but then you see things like that video of the girl.
Right.
Like, that's clearly something. Like, you couldn't see it, but clearly she could.
Right.
Like,
I don't know.
Isn't that weird? Like,
16
suicides. That's crazy.
Have you ever tried to look for... Okay, I love Ghost Adventures, or Ghost Hunters, or whatever they're called. And have you ever found anyone trying to do, like, a paranormal...
I don't know, I should look for that.
investigation there? And see?
When I was doing research on it, a lot of people were mostly talking about, like, it got kind of bogged down with the American Horror Story, like, basing their season off of it, so it was hard to find information.
If they're still open, they probably won't let people
I'm sure
do any
not.
investigations, just
or
for,
especially
like,
if it's
publicity's
just a
sake.
historical landmark, they're not going to let people in there anymore either.
Right.
Or, I wonder if they made it historical landmark so people couldn't go in there anymore.
I don't know.
All right. That was mine. Are you ready to do yours? I have no... Even though you've tried to tell me at least 6 times what yours is, I don't know.
So, like I said earlier, I'm a huge fan of ghost hunters. So, when I was trying to research hotels, I didn't really find, like, much research on Google. Like, of course, plenty of places are like, this is haunted. And I'm like, bitch, that is not haunted. Where's the proof? And, of course, like, you can go to, like, Wikipedia and all
That's
these...
what I did.
And all the... And all these websites, and they give you, like, one incident, like, maybe someone died and maybe it was haunted. No. I went to...
The source.
The source, yes. I tried to look for hotels that have been, like, people went to and did investigations and at least had some sort of solid proof.
Yeah.
I do know that, like, some investigators, you know,
on TV, they might...
they might exaggerate or just, like, be overly dramatic and just...
Is the one the show you're talking about, with Zach?
Yes, it's the 3 guys.
Dylan my dad calls them the tight shirt brigade.
They're so tight. How do they breathe? How do you breathe in that?
And he gets possessed, like, every 2 or 3 episodes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So, the hotel... So, like I said, I'm a huge fan. And I think it was their very first investigation. They investigated the Goldfield Hotel. And so this hotel is known for having hauntings, of course. But a bunch of really crappy things happened. So a little bit about the hotel. It was built between 1907 and 1908.
Much older than mine then.
Yeah, by architects Morrill J. Curtis and George E. Holsworth. It was built in a U shape to make sure that everyone who stayed there at least had, like, an outdoor window. So, like, just for, I guess, aesthetics.
Yeah.
And the first floor exterior was just gray stone. So the outside is just all gray, and while the other floors were just red brick. Yeah. I maybe back in the early 1800s that was a thing.
Great. We wanted to look as drab as possible.
Yeah. And then in 1981, the building was registered as a historical building. So eventually
There's a pattern here.
Yeah.
That's a conspiracy. I just
know it.
Yeah. I just know it.
At the time of its completion, it was said that the hotel was the most spectacular hotel of its time.
Even though it was gray.
But only the bottom was gray.
Just the bottom, sorry. But that red brick was spectacular.
Spectacular. The last paying guest was in World War II.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And while other owners have taken over the hotel for renovations, they remain incomplete as of 2010. And then the building was also featured in the movies Vanishing Point and Cherry 2000.
I've heard of Vanishing Point, but I've never heard of the other one.
Same thing. I've never watched The Vanishing Point, but I've heard of it.
Yeah.
Never seen anything else about it. And I don't know why it was not in, like, why people stopped coming. I assume that since it was the hotel of its time, once maybe the Great Depression hit, people were just not, they couldn't afford to be in it anymore. But some of the really spooky things that happened. So this lady named Virginia Ridgway spent 3 decades as a caretaker and like keeper of the keys to the hotel, granting visitors access to the building and accompanying them as they toured the floors. She was thrown up against a wall and restrained by an entity. So imagine like an entity picking you up slowly off of the floor. During a cleansing ritual. So she let these people inside the hotel to do a cleansing ritual. And so she's letting them do the ritual on the floor. And she's just kind of taking a step back. And all of a sudden, she's being thrown up against the wall and lifted into the air.
Yeah.
And she said, that she felt it, but maybe, like, the cleansing was working, I guess, and
I'll get choked out for a minute if it means that the hotel's okay.
Yeah,
she loved her job.
She loved it. And so time passed, and obviously after that happened, I'm assuming that it kind of picked up publicity as being something haunted.
Yeah.
So she also showed 2 other ghost hunters around the hotel.
She didn't learn
and took them into the basement, which from what I read is also known as the place where she says like it's the 7th dimension, and there's a place like to pass through the portal, like things can pass through the portal and all this stuff. So she took these 2 guys down to the basement, and they all had flashlights. And so as soon as she gets down there and they're like off of the stairs, all 3 of their flashlights went out.
Oh, good.
So she had to lead them out of a pitch dark basement and up the stairs by herself.
Nope.
And when they got back up to the main floor and outside, she's like, "Hold on, I'm gonna go across the street and I'll get us all batteries." And the investigators were like, "No, ma'am, no, thank you," and left. So didn't even do an investigation. They only got downstairs, did that, and were like, "Done."
I don't want to be here.
Well, could you imagine getting, you're so pumped to do this investigation and your batteries are all charged and you're so ready to go, and then you get there and immediately your battery died?
You would
like,
think,
of a flashlight?
You would think that people who ghost hunt as a living and or hobby would be a little more
have
brave.
Brave. Have
what happened
backups?
other than their lights? Or I was to say, the lights went off. Like,
yeah, well, spirits and entities do that.
Yeah, no, what I'm saying is like, you would think that would not be the first time that people who ghost hunt,
they're
lights
probably
have gone
extremely amateur. Like,
I would hope so.
Or maybe not even ghost hunters. They were probably just 2 people who claimed to be ghost hunters and wanted to just like fuck around or something. Yeah. It was often during tours, when they would be going down the stairs during the psychic tour, that a person would be pushed down the stairs by the specific entity. And Virginia believes a room in the hotel. Okay, yeah. So the basement is the passageway to other worlds. Right. So like the 7th dimension. Yeah, just super cash.
Yeah. If you want to go to hell, just come to the basement.
Just come here. We got it. We got it. And so again, the Ghost Adventure team visited the area 4 times. So each time that they went, they got really good, awesome footage. I didn't really care to, do the past, like the last 3 times they visited. So I watched their, I like I said, I believe it was their very first episode of their very first like type of deal that they went. And some people say that this place, and when the ghost hunters went there, that they got one of the most key like pieces of evidence of paranormal activity.
Oh, jeez.
During this entire investigation. So a ghost named Elizabeth would regularly try to communicate with people. Mm-hmm. And so Elizabeth was believed to be this prostitute that George, one of the builders, had.
Oh, okay.
So he was her prostitute, supposedly. And he had gotten her knocked up. And so he kept her in a room. As you do. You know, cash. He kept her chained to the what is it? Not a radiator, or maybe it is.
Yeah, probably.
So whatever the little the heater thing.
Yeah, radiator.
Yeah, so he kept her chained to that, pregnant, and starved her until she had the baby. And once she had the baby, he took the baby and like threw it down this like chute that went into the basement. So obviously the baby died from the fall, and so then Elizabeth was starved to death until she died.
Oh my God.
So they believe that her and the baby haunt the area, and possibly George himself too, because, you know, some people believe that when you're in a specific area and so many traumatic things happen that if you, eventually when you do pass, you go back to that
yeah, I've heard that.
Specific area. Pacific. The Pacific Ocean. And yeah, it's just, you know, awful things like that. They think that a gunslinger died there, and he like regularly just like hangs out in the hallways. And so the seventh portal. So when going back to Ghost Adventures. So when they were doing their investigation, they of course go down into the basement because that has the most activity, or the most haunted of the areas. So they were going through, I feel like the basement was still like a hallway of sorts with rooms and things, and just occupied.
Yeah.
And so they were going through, and of course it's pitch black. They have no extra lights, but maybe like an infrared camera. And so they're going through, and they're obviously scared. This is their first investigation, and things are creepy. Things are happening. They're hearing noises.
Well, they are in the dimension of hell.
Exactly. They're hearing noises and just being creeped out. And so, and they're in like just a straight line. So one of them is first, whoever has the camera, and then they kind of let them go in one by one, and the other guy is kind of behind him like a few feet. So he walks in this room and puts his light on the wall. So imagine if you just walk into a room and you like turn to the right, and he's facing this wall, and I think he said something like, "Who are you? Why are you here?" And his light is shining on just like fallen bricks on the floor, as if someone was gonna stash them for building, or, you know, oh, we're done with these, I'm just gonna put them here type deal. And saw the brick lift up into the air and being chucked across the room.
Shut up.
Swear to God.
You saw that?
Yes, they show it on their investigation. And they had a whole bunch of people try to debunk this. You know,
maybe a brick. It's not like it's a piece of paper.
Well, exactly. They say like, oh, a string did it, but if you think about it, the force that it would have taken for that brick to be moved, so like vigorously out of the air.
Well, like when they have those, like sometimes when I watch that show, it's like, look at this thing moving. And I'm like, it's a dust particle. Like it's a bug. It's
like
a
the
piece
orbs,
of dust.
right?
Yeah, I'm like, there's no way. But a brick. I mean, a brick's heavy.
No, a brick, and not only so, and they. After the episode was done, and they didn't properly close this episode, I'll tell you why in a second. But after they had taken this video documentation, and they went and they had it investigated to prove that they didn't mess with their footage. Like, this is real. This is what really happened. And when someone was, checking this footage out, they put it in like different, like, filters or whatever.
Oh, yeah, to see if they could see a string.
To see if they could see a string or anything else. And it showed that boards in the back were being levitated also. So not only was this brick being thrown across the room, and it's like, not even a brick, a cinder block. A cinder block.
I was like, he's going to make noise until he gets up the stairs.
So it's not just a tiny little red brick; it's a huge cinder block.
Oh,
so,
even I thought it was a little brick.
No,
even
like
more,
like a huge gray cinder block being thrown across the room.
I can't even pick those things up.
And I can. What do you mean you can't pick them up?
Listen. I have strong legs, not arms. I'm a dancer. My arms are like toothpicks.
But and then you can see boards in the back just levitate.
Oh my
so
God.
Obviously it's not just if it was a one-man job, I mean,
there's no way you could do like all those things at once.
There's no way you can do all those things at once. So, of course, as soon as that happened, they freak out.
Yeah.
Cameras, they immediately put them down and they run to try to get out of this basement, but they get lost. They lose each other because they're so freaked out. And so one of them is calling to the other one, like, where are you? And the other one is, like, literally having a panic attack, like, shut down, can't talk.
Oh, crap.
And you can kind of hear, like, something else yell someone else's name to maybe kind of confuse them. Like, come here. Like, come in this room. Like, Nick, come here. Like, really freaky shit. And before they found each other, through their little, not the voice box, but just like, you know, like a tape recorder when they were doing, just to make sure they can hear like any voices or anything, you can hear someone crying, and it's not the investigator. It's not. It's like another voice crying.
Oy.
And they
Like
did
an adult crying?
No, well, it does sound like it sounds like an adult woman crying, like sobbing,
like a mother of a child.
And yeah, they were so freaked out because when they do their investigations, they're locked in the building.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah,
they were so freaked out that they jumped out of the second story window to get into onto the fire escape.
I must have never seen this.
I will, Creaky McStir.
Yeah.
I will show you, but
I must have never seen it because I've never heard of them like getting out of the lockdown
they
building.
were so freaked out, but I could understand why after seeing something like that. There's no fucking way that I would stay there. My ass would be out. I probably wouldn't even put myself in that situation to go anyways.
All the dogs. No,
all the dogs. And so once that their episode aired, reporters went back to that area because, I mean, it's high traffic when something that big happens.
Oh, yeah.
So news reporters and other investigators would go back, and they did a voice recording, and they were like, why did you do this?
Yeah.
Who did this? And apparently they record a voice saying, thank you, but we've done it. Yeah.
What the hell does that mean?
And this place is located in Nevada, in Goldfield, Nevada. Yeah. So, like, I mean, it's not like a huge...
Well, I mean, a lot of people are at Las Vegas.
Yeah, but it's in Goldfield, Nevada. I don't know where Goldfield
that,
is in terms of, like,
Las
geographic.
Vegas,
yeah. And the hotel is not open for business, obviously.
I would hope not.
And I think, like, to me, they went up into the room that Elizabeth was supposedly held in to try to get a EVP. Yeah. And so Zach was sitting down on the ground, and as he was doing his EVP, you can see an orb. And I know some people, they believe in paranormal, but they don't believe in orbs. Yeah. I feel like you can tell when there's a bug, a dust particle, or an orb.
Like, I've definitely caught orbs on camera before that, like, have very clearly been an orb because it's, like, see-through, like, there's no way. Right. But, like, sometimes in that show, it'll be, like, this big, and it will move like this, and I'm like... That's surely a bug. Right. Like, surely that's a bug. He was
sitting in the, like, just in the corner by, like, where the radiator would have been. Right. And sitting on the ground just trying to make, like, just trying to talk. Just trying to make conversation, you know, cash.
Hey, how you doing?
And, yeah, and you can see this orb kind of, like, circle on his arm. And he was like, I felt something cold here. Mm-hmm. And so they kind of checked it up being like, maybe that was her trying to communicate or something. But... how evil of a person to just... I don't understand.
I mean, if I was going to haunt somewhere, it would definitely be the place where I was chained to a radiator and starved.
Well, I mean, she was killed there.
Like, if anybody was going to haunt something, that's it. Like, when sometimes people are like, my grandmother's haunting this house. I'm like, but why? And they're like, nothing. She just lived here. I'm like, okay, but there's no reason for her to haunt it.
Well, she was killed there.
But, like, that's what I'm saying is she was killed. Like, she has every reason to haunt that area.
And it's like, I wonder if maybe the basement was kind of turned into this seventh portal. Like, a baby was killed there. Like,
I see what you're saying.
So I wonder if maybe something else had been going down there.
So, like, just so many bad things happened that it, like, just bad energy
I don't know.
It.
Like, maybe someone was doing something, like satanic, and then they had the opportunity to have an innocent sacrifice, if you will. And maybe that kind of kicked it off. I don't know, but
that's crazy.
It's really creepy.
Wait, your phone again?
I'm a very popular person.
Apparently, that's crazy. I don't know how I've not seen. I swore that I had seen every episode of that show, but I must not have seen that. I would remember that.
They have went back a few times, but like I said, I did not watch the past 3 times that they went because I felt like. Surely anything that they find in the next 3 episodes is not going to be as big as that. And people, once, people tried to debunk this and no one really tried to figure it out. I feel like their show really kicked off after that.
Oh,
and
yeah.
people were like, these guys are, like, legit. Which I can understand, like, maybe some things aren't as legit. Like,
I was going to say, I love that show, and I believe about 70% of what happens.
Like, when they do, like, oh, it said, come here, and you're listening to it, and you're like, I don't hear,
you hear this,
here.
I love when I'm like,
I hear, like, burgers and fries.
Yeah. Like,
he said he wants to die.
It's like, do you hear that? And it's like, and you're like, oh, I didn't hear that. And they're like, it said, come here. And you're like, oh, yeah, I totally hear it now. Because you told me I heard it.
Yeah, so some of that, I'm like, maybe they're hoping.
Or, like, the fact that he gets possessed at least every, 5 episodes.
I totally get I feel sick. I feel...
Oh, yeah.
I feel sad.
Have you seen
I feel angry. Because places that I have been to that were haunted... Immediately when I walk in, I feel sick. I feel dead sick. Like, I feel like I'm going to vomit. My head is throbbing. And then immediately when we leave, You're fine. Yeah. I'm perfectly fine. So I totally believe that.
The main guy, this has got nothing to do with scariness. It's just funny. According to him in his very serious voice, because he always makes everything sound so serious, he's been in so many places in abandoned buildings that he now has asthma and has to wear the mask. And he looks ridiculous.
Someone was making a joke because they have the spirit box.
Yes.
Which is basically like this, like a high frequency radio type deal where they scan through radio channels.
And it comes up with a word.
And spirits are able to manipulate the high frequency to say things. So someone joked that, like, Zach puts on mask, holds spirit box, then spirit box says something all of a sudden. So they think that he's manipulating. They think that he's manipulating the spirit box. And I'm like, come on.
Enough. He doesn't wear it that often in the real investigations. He wears it a lot, like, when they're walking around in the beginning.
Yeah.
Or, like, when, like, whoever the caretaker is showing them around.
Right.
Like that. Dylan has taken at least 50 pictures.
We have our own personal paparazzi here.
No. I think that is our stories.
Yeah, so those are our stories for haunted hotels.
That was
super exciting.
I feel like we did good for our first story.
Yeah, mind you, I'm very nervous.
Yeah.
I have a very hard time when I talk of, like, keeping on track.
No, I thought you did good.
Yeah, I like to talk about something, and, like, a minute into the story, I, get on a subject and get sidetracked and then tell a completely different story. And then I'm like, wait, what were we talking about?
I know.
I do that all the time.
I know.
And it's just my personality. I can't help it. I like to do this.
I can't help it. No, I'm excited because at first we had talked about just doing haunted stuff, and I was like, oh, but I like so many other creepy things. So I'm glad we agreed to do other creepy things.
I love crystals. I like carrying them around. I like using them for protection.
Well, it's not creepy, but...
Well, it's not creepy, but I feel like it's different.
Yeah.
And I like listening to, creepy stories or just stories that are just, people are weird. Yeah. Like, people are different. People live in their own different towns and do different things than society does. Or, people that have different religions and do, like, witchcraft and...
Like cults.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah,
Listen,
that's creepy. I mean, that's creepy.
I love me a good cult.
I love me a good cult. Cults creep me out because cults are still here
today.
Oh, yeah. And people are trying to, like, I don't know. It creeps me out. I can't imagine. I can't.
I could see you joining a cult without realizing it.
Without realizing it?
Yes, absolutely.
Like what?
I don't know. They'd be like, come here and see this cool thing. You'd be like, all right.
What cool thing you got?
Dylan, what should our next week be?
Well... Jacob and I have talked about it. We've got...
I figured you had.
We have 3 different options for you guys to pick from. Number 1, you could do it on cannibals in the U.S.
Oh.
Oh, not the reaction I was thinking.
Nothing like a good arm.
You'd be like, no, thank you.
No, I love a good cannibal.
I love a good cannibal.
Nothing freaks me out. You know that.
Or Tennessee-based spooky things because the podcast is recorded in Tennessee. Or urban legends that turned out to be true.
Oh, I liked the first and the last one.
Yeah. I kind of want to do urban legends that turned out to be true.
And then do you want to do cannibals for your 3rd episode?
Yeah, and then we could do the Tennessee as the 4th one. Yeah. That's fine.
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Tennessee's got like one big thing though.
That's
what
true.
Is it?
The Bell Witch.
That's what we
No,
said.
listen, I am
It's
terrified.
Kentucky, just kidding.
No, it's not. It's
No,
Adams,
I was
Tennessee.
saying Waverly. No, I was saying Waverly Hills.
I was like, what are you talking about?
No, I was thinking of the sanatorium.
No, we will not go there. Do not request that we go there. Dylan, it is not happening.
Dylan wants to go so bad.
No, you can go. I'm not going.
I told him I wouldn't go.
You will do the podcast by yourself. I will not go. I will not step foot on that property at all.
I'd step foot
You
on
know
the property,
why it's haunted, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because of it's basically the whole area is Indian burial ground.
Yeah, well, and also they murdered a lot of people.
Well, yeah, but I mean, what most hauntings are based off of Indians and Indian burial grounds and disrespect and all this kind of stuff.
What is this face you're making? Most bad things is Indians? Is that what you're laughing at?
No.
And I'm also like, guys, it's the end of the episode. Save this for another time.
I can't. I'm chatty. I'm chatty Kathy. Here we go.
Chatty Kathy.
Episode 2. Pull up your britches. Time to get started.
Pull up your britches.
The Bell Witch.
All right. Well, that was the end of that. If you would like to email us your spooky stories or you just want to talk,
we'd love to hear your opinions and stories.
Basically, as long as you're not going to be an asshole.
Don't be mean.
Yeah. One of us is very sensitive, and it's not me.
How dare you?
If you would like to email us, it is hexymamas@gmail.com. So
that's Hexy.
Yes.
Hexy. Mamas, M-A-M-A. S.
That's true. Some people do spell mamas with two M's.
Yeah, two M's.
Which is weird. I'm like, meme?
Mamas.
Mamas. So if you want to email us or chit-chat or whatever, that is where you can talk to us. But until next time, I don't know what to say. We don't have a cute...
We don't have a cute outro yet.
Until next time...
Go hex yourselves.
That was the most obnoxious laugh I've ever laughed in my life. I'm sure the audio went.
It's all at the top of the bar.
Anyway, yeah, I like it. Go hex yourself.
Go hex yourself.
Woo. Goodbye. Shut it off, Dylan.
Two Hexy Mamas is a weekly podcast written and performed by Jessica and Korina. Two Hexy Mamas is produced and edited by me, Dylan, no last name, with additional support and editing and technical awesomeness by Mr. Jacob, no last name. And finally, we rented the space from our cat, Ariana. She owns the house we live in. See you next time.
And our ghost.
And our ghost host. Who's that coming down the street? Who's that coming to me? Is that two Hexy Mamas? Yeah, that was...
Shut up, that was so...